right, moving forward. Now we're transitioning to an engaging fireside chat now on the topic of the Cohesion Code, secrets to creating unstoppable teams. Ever wonder what makes some teams excel under pressure and some crumble? Well, our next speaker is going to talk about that more. Can I please call on stage? We've got two speakers, Dr. Laura Ficarra, co-president, owner, and founder of Cherry Blossom Publishing, as well as Professor Koji Naidu, founder and director, consultant, leadership and relationships coach, author, speaker, and professor at Self Leaders Academy. A round of applause for both of them, please.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and it's been such a pleasure meeting everyone, and for those of you I haven't met yet, you're going to meet me, and hopefully I get to meet you. I'm clicking. So here we go. I am Dr. Laura Ficarra. This is Dr. Koji Naidu, and we are discussing the Cohesion Code, secrets to creating unstoppable teams. So first of all, I'm a mom. I'm a daughter, and there's me, my daughter, and my mom. And that's my first identity. Next is, I'm an educator. I've been director of a preschool to an adjunct instructor at a university level and everything in between. An educational consultant, writing consultant. Like I said, I was administrator, researcher. I was fortunate to get my doctorate from St. John's University in New York, if you didn't understand the accent. A writer and team builder. And more recently, I have a publishing company where we publish the book, promote the book, market the book, writers' retreats, and soon we'll be having online coaching. And this is a slide that I introduce myself to my students with hyperlinks to each one that I will not bore you with, but a writer, publisher, actually was in a commercial for a friend of mine who's an attorney. So actor, I got my doctorate, and my sailing certificate. Very artistic, that's some of the stuff I've done. I have also do fine art painting. I've had 8 exhibitions, and mostly in New York City, and that's the play that I published. And in my spare time, I volunteer with the Mayor of New York City weekly. So what is team building? I'm not sure, because I know we have people from all over the world, but for a show of hands, how many people remember the show Friends? Okay, yeah, excellent. Most of the people here. Well, there's a funny story about what the producer did for that show. In the very, very beginning of choosing these strangers to be friends, on his dime, he sent them to Vegas for a long weekend, and they bonded. They bonded so much on a personal level that you could see it in the show that they looked like friends. Most of them are still very close friends. And that, to me, is one of the most important things when you're building a team. It is really important to have that human connection first, which is why I bored you with my own personal things, because if you don't know me and I don't know you, we're not connecting. We don't feel cohesive. And the cohesiveness in the team building is the glue that keeps it together. I was going to go into boring journal articles of when the term was coined in 1965 and how it evolved, and anybody wants those journal articles, I could send them to you. But basically, the shared values, I could send these slides to anyone who wants them, And, you know, one thing that I think the transparency has been said, a sense of unity. But one thing I want to mention from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, he talks about putting the right person in the right seat on the bus. Because you could have someone, do you know your team well enough to know who should be in what seat of that bus to make it the most dynamic and cohesive team? Building trust, sense of belonging, encouraging mutual respect. I published a journal article on work happiness that actually found it did not matter how much money you made, it did not matter how many years you had with that corporation or school or any other institution, if you didn't have a sense of belonging, feeling appreciated, and one other thing I'm not going to tell you, you're going to have to read my journal article to find out. So, why is cohesive team building important? It creates a sense of belonging, the trust, establishing clear roles and expectations. If everyone is assigned the same thing to do, how are you creating the synergy to make that team succeed, to make it shine, to give it the oomph it needs in order to be successful? And we have here someone who is a guru on personality tests right in the front row. And Raisin, am I saying it right? Don't kill me, sorry. Reza, on personality tests. And I think those are great for connecting people, getting to know each other, getting to know yourself. Know thyself first, so you could then work on your strengths, improve your weaknesses. All these things are vital. But don't make the mistake of thinking that you have to all be like me, a little Pollyanna, positive and energetic and passionate, because you know that cynical person or that worrier saved England from the World War. I believe it was Churchill, who was such a worrier that he was able to stay 2 steps ahead of the Germans because he worried of everything that was going to happen and he couldn't control. So how important is that, to have all different types of people on the team? And then here's my journal article that work happiness basically is life happiness. Your overall health, your finances, your relationships are all determined by your work happiness. So I know I've had those jobs where Sunday night I'm having a panic attack and anxiety because, oh my God, I have to go in on Monday and face the horror. And yet I've had the jobs where I just can't wait. And there I am, Sunday night, still creating things at 11 o'clock at night when I should be sleeping. And increased performance increases loyalty. I have a slew of team building workshops. Again, I actually have point-by-point ideas for each one. I even have escape room challenges that I stepped out for some people that aren't familiar with that. And it's really about having people connected, having people in the right positions, having people inspired with a shared vision that gives everyone a purpose, something to strive for. And if they don't share that vision, then they don't belong on the team. I'm going to hand over some mic time to my colleague here, Dr. Koji.
Thank you, Laura. Now, Laura is a hard act to follow. and we promised each other outside that we're going to be brief, right? So I too have slides, but I'm going to skip over some of them because you can always contact us afterwards. I think the important thing about having the fireside chat is for you to actually listen to us interact with each other. And we're going to make it up as we go. But more important than us two is to see and hear from you. So I'm looking at the clock here in front of me, which says, that's the amount of time we have left. And we're going to be true to you and give you that time to actually engage with us. All right? So if you can bear with us, bear with me, with regard to skipping the slides, I think that will be a good thing. So who is Dr. Kogi? Yeah, this way? Green one? Yep, got it. All right, so I'm sure you all can read. And so, I need that slide back. Sorry. These things happen. Yep, thank you. So, I am Kogi. I am not who you see. I am not who you believe I am. I am not your doormat. I am not easily beaten. I am not who you want me to be. I am Kogi. I am compassionate, yet strong. I am wise, yet humble. I am caring, yet confident. I am vulnerable, yet resilient. I'm a proud Indian woman, a devoted wife, mother, sister, and grandmother. I am Kogi. I'm a teacher and learn from your experience. I'm a friend and your comfort and support. I'm a writer and am your voice. I'm a coach to realize your potential. I'm a leader and your guide. I am Kogi. I am blessed. I am grateful. I'm an old soul. I am because you are. I am here always. I am Kogi. Self-Leaders Academy came about as a result of a dream that I had once. And the dream, and it's just coincidental and fortuitous, I think, that I'm here presenting with a publisher. And this is the book that came out of my dream. So if you're interested and want to know more about this, you'll get to hear and see more about who I am, having a look at the website. But Live, Learn, Love, The Path to Your Prowess, is something that came out of a physical dream, not something that came out of my mind or what I thought about would be a good idea to do. So I guess when you have a dream and you're actually pushed in a particular direction, it gives one the accountability to actually be and be true to that dream. So Live, Learn, Love, The Path to Your Prowess is that very dream. So all of Self-Leaders Academy is based on that dream. And when you have that dream and that vision that comes to you, I was fortunate to have that. And so now I have to follow the path. As at now, I work full-time. So when do I get to realize this dream? And I think standing here on this stage is the first day for me to actually realize that dream. That dream happened 13 years ago. And I'm still working because I need money to survive. And that, I think, is many of you can empathize with that. So the values of Self-Leaders Academy are those: authenticity, excellence, quality, humility, and gratitude. And I'm hoping that you can see some of those in my presentation and my conversation I'm going to have with Laura in a moment. But what are my values? Some of that came through in the poem that I've just read, and I think that you can see where I'm coming from with that, because in terms of my background, I said I was an Indian woman because I look Indian, feel Indian in my spirit and soul, but I'm actually South African. So I was born into apartheid, 150 years removed from India, so unfortunately I don't have any of the Indian languages. And so I sometimes don't know who I am. But I think that just like you and I, we're human beings. And I think that's the greatest connection. It doesn't matter about how we look, whether we're male or female, what ethnicity we come from, where we were born, because we didn't have any choice over those. But I think what you can see there is those values that I'm adding to, which are integrity, perseverance, collegiality, fairness, and equity. And I guess those ones in blue there tell you about where I've come from, which is South Africa, born into apartheid and having to actually struggle hard to be noticed, so if you look at my bio, which you've seen up there, I've got a lot of achievements, but they don't mean anything if I don't share and actually empower others to actually follow the same path. And we're all leaders here, and I think that my message in terms of my purpose is to do exactly that. And books are one way to do it. Teaching is the other. So ask yourself, what are your values? What matters to you? Which relationships do you actually focus on? What are you most passionate about? And what new things would you like to pursue? And if you had no stress in your life, what would your life look like? And I think these are the essence of how we can actually move forward in that very positive way, but also in a way that can make a difference to the planet and to each other. So these are some of the things you probably came up with. Right? Some of them. There may be others that are very important to you that are not listed there, but those are the common ones. When I do workshops, these are the things that come up. But for a leader, what are your skills for success? And I think these are important. We can't grow if we are not adaptable and we're not open-minded. Right? We have to have that emotional intelligence. We have to have that energy field. We need to read each other's energies. And for you to actually be a leader and have unstoppable teams, if you can't read the energy in the room or the energy in your group or not do one of your personality tests, you're going to be hopeless. Or you get the results of those personality tests and you do nothing about it, what's the point? So emotional intelligence and having that open-mindedness, grit, because it's not easy, resilience, when you're knocked back, you stand up again and you get on with it, and tolerance, of course. Focus and execution, and then problem solving and creativity. We can unpack some of these as we speak. This checklist, I'll leave it up there for you to look at and for you to check off whether those resonate with you or not. How many of those you actually do as a leader? How many of those you actually live as a leader? So having this, on a big board in vision statements and mission statements, meaningless if they're not aligned to the values and they're not aligned to the practice and the purpose and the why of your businesses or the why of your profession. And I think as middle-level managers and middle-level leaders, these things become a useful checklist. And when you do that personality test, I think then one can refer back to this because you always get that personality test would say, well, this is how you classify, and these are the things you can do for professional development, or to actually become depending on the test, what you can do to improve your leadership skills. But that's something there that you can actually look at and check yourself against in terms of, or check your team members in terms of where the team's falling apart or why the team's falling apart. This is one that I've come across in my recent reading, and I think this is a useful list. I am a fellow of the US Women Leaders for the World, and one of the seminars that I attended was the authors of this book. They were truly inspirational. They've done a lot of research, and they've come up with this list, which is a different kind of list that we'd normally see for leaders. The list that they came up with were humility, empathy, accountability, resiliency, transparency, and inclusivity. Now that resonated very well with me because many of my values are very similar to those. But think about those other leaders that were in the room that didn't have those as being the new model, the modern model of leadership competencies. And I just put that up there because I wanted everyone to see, it's not Kogi saying this, or it's not Laura saying this, it's actually been researched, and that's the latest book. So it's a 2023 December publication. We need to be mindful about how we lead, and if you just focus on the red words, I think we'll get the essence of where we are. And that is about celebrating. I think so often we actually focus on the end goal. We forget the small wins. We focus on those things that upset us, the challenges we have, whether it's business, money, health challenges, whatever the challenges are. And we forget to actually celebrate those small successes. Or we forget to celebrate the success of someone who's had difficulty getting along with someone else, couldn't make the deadline because of some issue that happened, uncontrolled, beyond their control, because life happens. And when life happens, there's no control. So I think celebrating and recognizing that is very, very important. I'm emphasizing that because that's the one that I'm weak at. I tend to focus on the next thing and the next thing, and then I forget, you know? And that Women for the World Leadership Program has taught me that, which is, and I thought I know, kind of knew it all, been there, done that. And one of the goals they set in the program was self-care. And self-care is something that I ignored because I was thinking, I'm blessed with energy, I can do these things, I can think this through, I can multitask, etc. And self-care is not one thing that I actually focused on. So in the program, if I may just go off on the tangent a bit, in the program they had the professional goals, but they also had the self-care. And I think it's important to have a different person making you accountable for your self-care. You may be fortunate enough in your life to actually have someone like that, but if you don't, you should actually focus on how do you look after yourself each day. What are you doing to focus on self-care? Because if you focus on self-care and be mindful about it, you will have that much more energy and you'll be able to achieve that much more. And I've seen that in the last 10 months I've been in that program. And of course, I have to actually account to them once a month to tell them what have I done with regard to the goal that I set around self-care. So it's not about the professional goals, it's actually about the self-care one, because everything else takes care of itself. Well, the next one is my hobby horse, which is everyone has a voice, open communication, rest and recovery, that goes with the self-care, and creating a culture of respect and inclusion. If someone was at the other session earlier, I got very passionate there when the panel weren't looking at social mobility and someone in the audience actually had a valid point to make about how the structures have to change for social mobility. It's not about the leadership and it's not about the money, it's not about those things. We have to, as a world society, community, and culture, focus on structural change for that to happen. So open communication, I mentioned that. And a culture of respect and inclusion, mental well-being goes without saying, and emotions. And as a team member, very similar again, being mindful, respectful, listening, checking in, including others, and being grateful. The other thing with regard to team members, sometimes you don't have a choice. You can't choose your team members, but you have to find a way of working together. And don't look at it negatively. Look at it as being, well, what am I going to learn from this experience? How am I handling it? What's my role in making this other person upset? It takes two to tango, don't they say that, isn't it? So you have a role to play in whatever upset there is in the team. I'm not going to go over this one because I think Laura did an excellent job there about what are leaders of cohesive teams, and they are those individuals who are team builders, and they are recognizing the skills, the deficiencies, as well as the challenges of their team members. Needing to care, and that's something that is empathy. That's something that you have to actually have within you. You can't force yourself to care, but it's something that you can work on. I'll give you one example from my own experience, is that because I am blessed with energy, I expect everyone to have energy. But not everybody is like that. Some people need 10 hours of sleep. Here are my secrets, and I think this is a good segue for me to actually stop, and if we could leave that up, you could actually digest that, and maybe it'll spur you to ask us some questions. Looking at the time, we have about 15 minutes, so if Laura and I spoke for 5 minutes, just reflecting on each other's presentations, you could actually think about a question that you want to ask us and engage us in terms of our experiences, and we'll see where we go. So I'll leave that up for a second, and then I'll put on the last slide. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Dr. Koji.
Okay, for you. What did you think?
I think we really rushed it, and I feel terrible about that, but we really did want to make a point that it's not about us. It's about you guys getting the most out of our knowledge on team building.
All right, so I could start then. So, Laura, you've worked with many teams over the years.
Yes.
Yeah. So could you actually tell us a little story or a little bit an experience where you've learned from your team members?
So I actually have a great belief that you can learn from everyone. I remember learning when I was a second grade elementary school teacher. I learned from, and that was general education. I've learned from my middle school severely students with disabilities, but severe disabilities where they'd probably end up in a home. I could learn from their joy. And I'm able to learn now. I'm in a high school with special needs, with students with special needs, sorry. And I learn from them every day. Their resilience, their thinking in divergent ways. Everyone. I don't care who it is, you can learn from.
Well, that just reminds me, you know, we actually think that we have to learn from our teams, but I'm a mother, and you're a mother too, and 2-year-olds. I mean, I remember my daughter when she was 2. She just knew how to actually work me. She knew when to cry, she knew what she wanted, and she got what she wanted. And as she grew older, she was just socialized into knowing which buttons to press. And she's now an adult, and guess what? When we visit, she still wants attention. So team members are the same. They're just like kids. They need to be nurtured, they need to be looked after. And I think you get more out of team members if they're trusted and they, you know, we have that openness. I've noticed that if I say the deadline is, I'm not going to get much traction. But if I said, well, you know, how are you today? And so connecting with their family, connecting and knowing them and showing that you engage, it's not just about the KPIs, it's more than that. So that relationship is that
Absolutely.
so important.
Absolutely. Again, I don't want to make it about us, but I have teams I worked with 25 years ago who I am still close with, because from every school I've ever worked in, I've had a team, and those people have stayed my friends throughout my entire life from all the different stages.
Absolutely. And I guess the same applies to students. Remember, I'm a teacher and I'm an academic. So I think over the years, it's not a student-teacher relationship. It's actually we work on this project together. Let's see how we can actually make a difference beyond this. So I think coming down in terms of level of being the leader versus the team member or the student, I think is where the magic happens. And when you've got that bond happening, you really, really make it, you do well. And is that the cue for our, yes, it is. We have our first question. There we go.
Brilliant. Really, really good talk. Thank you very much. One of the, I guess, issues with the research is things change over time, and sometimes the research groups are kind of biased towards specific demographics. And we're in a cost of living crisis at the moment, specifically in the United Kingdom, and there's a lot of, the financial element does play a really stronger part in teams now. So do you still think that given some of the financial pressures that people are experiencing over the world, that, you know, the happiness, you know, engagement and fulfillment still outranks some of the, you know, how am I going to get paid? How am I going to get more? Do you think it's still kind of a valid approach to kind of focus predominantly on that side?
100%, absolutely. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, we human beings, isn't it? It's about survival. It's about prioritizing. And what stresses one out is what one gets one's attention. And I think that I remember growing up, the family would actually try to avoid the kids finding out what the stresses are. So they'd speak in hushed tones, etc. But the reality is still there. And so one can't just be ignoring the reality, if I'm understanding you correctly. You've got to actually face that. And it's not all about positive thinking. It's not all about that. It's actually facing it. But having the strategies to be able to handle it so that you, as a leader, are strong enough to face the next day.
The United
be there
States
for your
is
team.
facing right now the quiet quitting, they're calling it. And it's basically people saying, you know what, we want balance in our lives, life is short, we need to have time for living and not just working. And as much as I can be, and I have been, a workaholic, I make it a point to have that quiet time with my daughter with no phones and just that connection, just like I do with my team members and just like I do with my friends or family members. It's important to understand that in the end, that work happiness correlates to every other aspect in our life, and it has been proven study after study. Yes, Gary?
Yes, building teams obviously is a lot of work. It's maybe a passion and it's something that you might enjoy, but it takes maintenance, it takes rituals. And I think we're missing that in the talk. I'd like to know what are some key takeaways, some of the rituals that we can take back with us. I don't want to go through a lineage of process, but just some quick hits, just a couple of things that you can share with us that work for us that we can take back.
Point 10 was how you should have a monthly check-in to discuss team dynamics and goals, a quarterly meeting, sessions with the focus on continuous improvement. Professional development is always very important, and celebrating achievements and milestones during that team and that process, because it continues to grow and evolve and change. And the closer your team is, the better the results.
I think the one that I could actually add to the mix here is finding that happiness within and finding that stillness and that peace within. Even if it is going to the bathroom and actually just being on your own and just reflecting and appreciating and being grateful for being able to breathe, I think is in itself giving yourself that time. Listening, I think, is another one that one needs to actually practice. So a lot of times when we listen, I taught communication for 7 years. A lot of the time because it's not an easy thing to do, communicate. People are actually thinking about the answer they're going to give. So they haven't actually heard you. So I think just pausing and taking a breath and appreciating and allowing that person's energy to actually, come into your space. So you've given that time and giving that other person the time. I think making eye contact, which is something that is so obvious. But have you seen someone where their eyes glaze over when you talk to them? Or they look in the other direction and they're not listening to you? Or they're thinking, the mind is taking over? Or they're looking, yeah, absolutely. Those are the nonverbal giveaways. Because only 7% is the words that we use. The 93% are the nonverbals. And you've lost the person, you've lost your team member. But I think most important for leaders is to actually focus on themselves. Because if you're good, your team will be good. You'll take everyone with you. What do you think about that, Laura?
Yes. Did we answer your question? Not really.
Not really.
Quick hit takeaways, conflict resolution workshops, trust building exercises, focusing on blindfolding the partner and doing activities of that nature, collaboration workshop with group problem solving challenges, role playing current problems and seeing a better way to address it. I mean, honestly, the ideas and the things available are endless, and if you'd like me to share the slides, I actually have bullet points for every single one of the points that I had on this slide. So, even I remember a principal I worked with in North Carolina. She had a vacation home where she would take one grade at a time for a weekend. And it's very similar to that idea that I mentioned in the beginning with friends. When you create that cohesiveness between the team and it's genuine, that should really solve most of the issues with the logistics of them working together. Please.
So thank you very much for this great topic. It's very dear to my heart. And actually, I would like to share with the audience and with you
Of course.
my own experience. So it happened that I worked with both kinds of organizations. One that really encourage and promote team buildings and well-being at work, and one that maybe really doesn't give that importance. And answering both questions, if you allow me, because we had here 2 questions, yeah? Your question regarding the payout every month. I came now to a realization that I'm ready to go down, but I need a healthy culture, a caring employer. Because toxic employer, it's a nightmare. You cannot really survive it, yeah? Key takeaways, I can share with you my experience, and I really standing here today, and I'm grateful to one of the companies that is Mars. So Mars is a great company from US. And it happened that I was privileged to work there for 14 years. They gave me that much experience and in technically leadership, everything. Why? Because it was home to the best. It was home. There are a lot of techniques. There are how they build a high performance team. This is scientifically proved. You need to have a compelling vision, friendship at work. There are code of conducts. There is integrity and trust. If you don't act as per those rules of integrity and trust, you are out. To get promoted, there is a certain things that you have to fulfill. It's a very transparent system. And this has to be supported by management. The management has to be healthy. I worked with management that they are not, and it's hell. So this has to be supported by the top. It has to be ethical, and no wonder it's a family business, and the owners, this billion company is a family business, and the owners, they cascade their values, I'll say values. They have values and they live it. So I believe for any organization, they need to have value and they need to live it. And this way, and you need to select people with a culture fit. So we were all like each other. We were all fitting together. We were big family. We were doing wonders. And yes, this is this what can make you deliver a very challenging dreams. So that's it. This is
Thank
my
you for
story.
sharing so much. Absolutely agree. I love it though how every job you have, it's a family, but just some of them are very dysfunctional. And it comes from the top, like you said. So the values of the owners of your company is the same thing as the leader of a company. And when you have that high turnover and other things, remember, people leave leaders, not jobs.
Well said. Do we have any other questions or comments? If not, I'd just like to say, my mantra is live, learn, love. It is the path to your prowess. And if you're interested to find out a bit more, just catch me and then I will share. Otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn. It's selfleadersacademy.com or Dr. Kogi. It's not Dr. Kogi because I say so, but that's how my students refer to me, Dr. Kogi. Your last word?
Just thank you so much. Like I said, this whole few days has been a humbling experience. So valuable information from everyone in this room and the other rooms. I'm just honored to be part of it, and thank you. And my name again is Laura Ficara. If you want any information from the slides, a little bit in depth, just let me know. And cherryblossom.publishing.org is another way to find me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.